Everything seemed under control, at least on the surface. The message was simple, strong, familiar. America first. No endless wars, no foreign entanglements, no more sending American troops into conflicts that never seemed to end. That was the promise. And for millions of voters, that promise wasn't just political, it was personal. But then something happened. Something that quietly began to stretch that promise in ways few expected. A strike, then another, and then suddenly the United States wasn't just watching tensions in the Middle East, it was leading them. And now, as smoke rises across cities thousands of miles away, and American flags are folded at military ceremonies back home, a question is starting to echo louder and louder. Is this still America first, or something else entirely? Because what we're seeing right now isn't just a foreign policy decision. It's a test of loyalty, a test of belief, and maybe a test of how far people are willing to go before they start asking hard questions. Now, here's what's really happening. The United States, under President Donald Trump, has launched a series of military strikes targeting Iran. The operation, framed as a necessary move to stop a growing nuclear threat, quickly escalated into one of the most consequential military actions of his second term. According to the administration, the goal was clear: prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons and eliminate what they described as an immediate national security threat. But as with most conflicts, the reality is far more complicated. Because behind the headlines, behind the official statements, and behind the confident tone, there's a deeper story unfolding. To understand it, we need to go back, not just weeks, but years. For decades, the relationship between the United States and Iran has been tense, fragile, and often on the brink of collapse. From sanctions to proxy conflicts, from diplomatic standoffs to moments of near war, the two nations have been locked in a cycle that never quite breaks, and every U.S. president has had to decide how far they're willing to go. Some chose diplomacy, some chose pressure. But now, under Trump's leadership, that approach has shifted toward direct action. And it all reached a turning point with a strike that shocked the world. A strike that reportedly killed Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. That moment changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't just about deterrence. This wasn't just about warnings. This was escalation. And with escalation comes consequences. At first, the reaction among Trump's supporters was exactly what you might expect: strong approval, confidence, even relief. Because for many, this wasn't seen as starting a war. It was seen as preventing one. Polls began to show something striking. Roughly 70% of Trump's 2024 voters supported the strikes. That's not a small number. That's overwhelming backing. And it wasn't limited to just one group. From hardcore MAGA supporters to more moderate Republicans, there was alignment, a rare moment where a divided political coalition moved in the same direction. But here's where things get interesting, because when people were asked why they supported the strikes, the answers revealed something deeper than just policy agreement. Many believed Iran was actively developing nuclear weapons. Others believed the country posed an immediate threat to the United States. But one reason stood out above the rest: they trusted Trump. Not the intelligence reports, not the long-term strategy, not even the details of the operation. Just him. More than half of his supporters said their backing came down to trust in his judgment. And that trust is powerful. It shapes how people interpret events. It shapes how they react to uncertainty. And most importantly, it shapes how long they're willing to wait before questioning what's happening. Because here's the key promise that's holding everything together right now: this will be short. Not months, not years, weeks. The administration has suggested a timeline of 4 to 6 weeks, a limited engagement, a controlled operation, no endless war. And for many supporters, that's enough. They believe it will end quickly. They believe it will stay contained. They believe this is different. But history has a way of complicating those beliefs, because if you look back at past conflicts, they almost always begin with the same assurances: quick, targeted, necessary, and then, slowly, they grow. That's where the tension begins, even within Trump's own base. Because while many are supportive now, that support isn't unconditional. It has limits, and those limits are already starting to show. As the conflict enters its fourth week, cracks are beginning to form. Not massive fractures, not yet, but small, noticeable shifts. And one factor is driving most of it: American casualties. Each loss changes the conversation. Each ceremony, each folded flag, each grieving family. It adds weight. It makes the conflict real in a way that headlines can't. Among Trump's most loyal MAGA supporters, a majority still say the mission must continue, even if it means more lives are lost. But outside that core group, the numbers begin to shift. Among Republicans who supported Trump but don't strongly identify with the MAGA movement, the divide is almost even. Some say finish the mission no matter the cost. Others say no objective is worth more American lives. That's not just a difference of opinion, that's a fault line. And fault lines don't stay quiet forever. At the same time, another concern is quietly growing. Does the administration actually have a clear plan? Because launching a strike is one thing, ending a conflict is another. And when people start asking about exit strategies, timelines, long-term consequences, it usually means confidence is starting to weaken. Even among Trump's supporters, nearly half believe there may not be a clear plan in place. And yet, many of them still support the action. Why? Because again, it comes back to trust. They believe it will work out, even if they don't fully understand how. But outside of that circle, the reaction is very different. Criticism is growing louder, not just from political opponents, but from voices within Trump's own broader movement. Figures like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly have openly questioned the direction of the conflict. Their message is simple: this isn't what was promised. This isn't what voters signed up for. And their influence matters, because they speak to the same audience that helped build the movement in the first place. When those voices start to push back, it signals something important: not collapse, but tension. Real, growing tension. And it's not just political. There are economic concerns too, because wars don't just affect foreign policy, they affect everyday life. Oil prices, gas prices, supply chains. All of it can shift quickly when conflict spreads in the Middle East. And with a major election cycle approaching, those economic pressures could become a major factor. For many voters, the question isn't just, is this war justified? It's, how is this going to affect my life? And if the answer starts to feel negative, support can fade faster than expected. Now here's where the story starts building towards something bigger, because right now, everything is still within a kind of balance. Support is strong, but not unshakable. Criticism is growing, but not dominant. The timeline is short, but uncertain. It's like a pressure system, stable, but sensitive. And all it takes is one change to disrupt it. One major escalation, one unexpected event, one surge in casualties. If that happens, everything could shift, fast. Even Republican strategists are warning about it. They're saying the same thing in different ways. If this war stretches into the summer, if the costs begin to rise, if the results aren't clear, then the voices of opposition won't just grow louder, they'll multiply. And that's when things become unpredictable, because the coalition that supports Trump isn't as unified as it might seem. There are different factions, different beliefs, different priorities. Some are more interventionist. Some are strongly against foreign wars. Right now they're aligned. But alignment doesn't always last. And as we move closer to a potential turning point, the stakes are getting higher. Because this isn't just about Iran anymore. It's about the future of an entire political movement. What does America first really mean? Is it about avoiding war at all costs? Or is it about taking action when threats emerge, even if that means conflict? That question doesn't have an easy answer, and different people are answering it in very different ways. Some say this war fits the philosophy, that stopping a nuclear threat is exactly what strong leadership looks like. Others say it's a clear contradiction, that starting a new conflict, no matter the reason, breaks the core promise. And then there's a third group, people who acknowledge the contradiction, but accept it anyway. They believe circumstances changed. They believe the situation demanded action, and they're willing to adjust their expectations, for now. But here's the part that brings everything to a peak, because all of these opinions, all of these tensions, all of these uncertainties, they're building toward a single moment, a moment that hasn't fully arrived yet, but is getting closer. The moment when reality overrides belief, because belief can carry support for a long time. Trust can hold things together through uncertainty, but eventually, outcomes matter. If the war ends quickly, if the objectives are clearly achieved, if American losses remain limited, then this entire moment could be seen as a success, a bold move that worked, a risk that paid off, and Trump's support could become even stronger. But if the opposite happens, if the war drags on, if casualties increase, if costs rise and results remain unclear, then everything changes. Support weakens, questions grow louder, divisions deepen, and the very foundation of that trust starts to shake. That's the reality of where things stand right now. Not at the beginning of a story, but right in the middle of it, where outcomes are still uncertain, where opinions are still forming, where the future could go in multiple directions. And maybe that's the most important thing to understand. This isn't just a story about war. It's a story about belief, about loyalty, about how people make sense of complex decisions in uncertain times, and about how quickly things can shift when those decisions start to have real consequences. Because in the end, this isn't just about what's happening overseas. It's about what happens next, at home, and whether the promise that started it all can survive what's coming. Because if there's one thing history has shown again and again, it's that wars don't just test nations, they test the people who believe in them. And this test is far from over. And this might just be the beginning.